51, the 1st of November. Had an idea for a new energy source, having heard a lecture about nanotechnology. Basically, researchers can make nano-sized bubbles on the order of picoliters in volume. So you have to assume this is a silicon chip is 100 nanometers in diameter, and you can say you can make aqueous bubbles inside an oil laminar flow, or you can put oil bubbles into a aqueous laminar flow. The bubbles can be created like thousands per second. They're all the exact same size. You can do things like put single cells in the bubbles, or you can put bubbles in bubbles. The bubbles can be sorted. They can be controlled in these laminar flow devices. And what I had in mind was that you could create an exothermic reaction on these chips to harness energy from that. For example, maybe you'd put your reactants in two different bubbles. You'd run them in together, and you'd pop the bubbles with ultrasound to create heat. And you do this with millions of these units in parallel. For example, you'd have 1 million of these chambers collected. You'd run water past them and boil it to make steam, run that steam into a turbine. Or maybe with laminar flow, two flows will travel side by side, they won't mix. You can have the two reactants in the bubbles, and then you can pop them in the same place again with ultrasound. I don't know what exothermic reaction you want to use. Maybe it's one where these byproducts can be processed after the reaction. That's very important. Maybe, for example, you could use potassium permanganate in a bubble of inert gas and run it in a solution of ethylene glycol. You know, we make 7 billion kilograms of that per year. Or glycerin. That's very highly exothermic. And with the bubbles, you can get the concentration just perfect to control the reaction, to create heat so you don't melt the silicon and keep it in perfect control. So this is a way of using nanotechnology to harness the kinetic energy of bonds to make clean energy. And the feasibility of it is limited by current technology because I guess at the end of each of the laminar flow, you'd need to connect them like Lego block, and maybe it's not possible to connect these chips end to end so that turbulence doesn't disturb the bubbles. Maybe one day it could be a viable source of cleaner energy, and maybe the reactant products could be recycled to go back into the system. So I don't know what exothermic reaction would be good for this type of laminar flow nano bubble technology to create heat. I don't know. But I like the idea. It's an idea that could change the world one day. It's a big idea, I hope. And in case you're wondering what nano is 10 to the minus 9. A billionth of a meter. So everything smaller than 100 nanometers in any one direction. And the bubbles are picoliters in volume. I think that's the smallest bubbles that can be made at the current time.